Are you romanticizing your shopping addiction? Every once in a while, I'll see posts or videos romanticizing shopping addiction or just making shopping addiction seem aspirational or something that's super positive. It's almost like they're really trying to prove that money buys happiness and that they are so much better off, so much happier because they are constantly spending money. They're twisting it into something that is a good thing, treating yourself or doing self-care. Some posts I've seen are blatantly encouraging others to engage in shopping addiction behaviors, praising it or giving advice that it's the answers to all your problems, that it's going to make you feel much better after having a bad day. It's how you should deal with your negative emotions. And ultimately, it just seems like these creators, these posts are seeking validation that their behavior is normal and that it's also what everyone wants to achieve. They're really relying on lots of people saying, yeah, me too. And they are getting that validation. Going through the comments, I was actually kind of baffled because a lot of people were saying, yeah, it's therapy, right? I justify it because I'm just boosting the economy. I'm not hurting myself or anyone else, so why does it matter? In several cases, I literally saw the words, my parents or my husband should be glad that this is my only addiction. And don't even get me started on the whole concept of girl math to avoid the reality of how much money you're spending. This addiction is just played off like it's a joke or it's just not that serious. It's just how women are. It's just what we do. It's kind of like one of those things where if you don't laugh about it, then you just cry. And honestly, I don't fully blame them. Shopping addiction has been minimized for decades. I'm sure you can all think about those 90s and 2000s movies where the main character goes on a huge shopping spree like it's normal. I grew up watching those too, and I remember distinctly watching them as my parents were struggling to put food on the table and thinking to myself, I can't wait until that's me one day. And here I am, and I can say that it's a trap. You're lured in with the aesthetics, with the promise that you'll be successful, happy, even free. Freedom to buy what you want when you want it. And you don't even have to swipe your card anymore. Just do a little tap or just press a button and all of your dreams will be on their way to you. But when we promote shopping addiction in this way, blatantly displayed as something that's good or something that's aspirational, we are completely ignoring the actual consequences of the addiction. Oh yeah, brush that credit card debt under the rug, buy a bigger closet to fit all of your clothes, buy a bigger house to fit all of your stuff. It doesn't matter if you can't really afford it, just look like you can afford it. Losing the money that you have earned is the most obvious cost of shopping addiction, but it's definitely not the only one and might not even be the biggest cost. So outside of the obvious of losing money, the first thing that shopping addiction cost me is peace in my home. Overstuffed closets, things falling out of cupboards, not being able to find stuff constantly, even tripping over stuff because it was in the way, not being able to have a place to sit down, not being able to have a place to set my drink or my food. Visual clutter just everywhere. I feel like I could never relax because my eyes could never relax. Your home should be your sanctuary, and if it's full of clutter, it's just causing you to constantly be overstimulated. Instead of having peace at the end of the day, I was caught up in the stress of having to manage all of my things, this great inventory that I had, to the point where I would even start to neglect taking care of things or cleaning things because it just felt too overwhelming. Just let the dishes pile up. Just let the dust cover all the surfaces. Let my clothes get rumpled on the floor. The frustration and exhaustion of having to make thousands of little tiny decisions of every moment of every day. What shampoo to use, what products to use every single little step of the way for skincare, hair care, makeup, which water bottle to use for the day. It doesn't seem like that much, but everything added up together, when nothing is simple, then everything feels overwhelming, and I started to take it out on those around me. Surfaces would constantly be covered in my visual or mental to-do lists, and then I would just keep going out and buying more, bringing it home and realizing I did not have a place for these new things. Shopping addiction also cost me time that I'll never get back. All the time browsing and scrolling and searching for things to buy. The time you spend reading reviews on a product, comparing a bunch of different products against each other, tracking new packages. I would have so many packages that I couldn't really keep up with them, and I would have to constantly go into my email, click on the tracking information, and I'd have like multiple tabs open in my browser of the same tracking number because I could not keep any of them straight. I started having to write down which packages were coming on which days. And then all the time it takes to drive back out to the store or drive to the post office to return the items that you had bought that you didn't like. All of the time in general that I just spent wishing and wanting and curating my wish list and just looking for things to want. I would actually be ill if I knew how many hours I have spent of my life doing any of these things. Shopping addiction also cost me my mental health and mental clarity. The majority of my thoughts were what I could buy next. It felt like I always had multiple tabs open in my brain that I could not shut off, just bouncing from one thing to another and obsessing over each and everything and how it would somehow make me happier. I even started zoning out in conversations with friends or when I was watching movies, and I'd have to pause and ask my husband to explain because I completely missed it because I was in my own head thinking about things I wanted to buy. Addiction alters the brain. Your brain releases dopamine when it anticipates a reward. I was reading an article put out by Stanford University about how addiction alters the brain, and I wanted to read this little portion of it. When addictive substances and behaviors repeatedly cause an exaggerated surge of dopamine, the brain compensates by reducing the number and sensitivity of dopamine receptors, the molecules that detect dopamine. As a result, it becomes harder to feel pleasure, not just from the drug, but also from everyday life. I definitely felt this throughout my shopping addiction. Since I was a young child, I've always been very creative and loved art and all creative type hobbies. In recent years, as I was diving deeper and deeper into my shopping addiction, I could not have told you the last time that I had painted anything or done anything creative. In fact, this lemon painting behind me was the first full painting that I had done in years. I simply got to the point where I had no desire to do anything but shop. The thought of doing hobbies that I once had loved felt like work. I dreaded doing them because they just felt too hard or too boring. I had zero motivation. Somehow it became easier to drive 30 minutes away to a shopping center than it did to take my art supplies out of my closet. And the more I shopped, the more it took to be satisfied. A few times a month became every weekend, which then became nearly every single day, even multiple times a day. I bought something and then I immediately wanted to upgrade it. I immediately wanted more because it wasn't good enough. I just never was content. I constantly found new holes that I needed to fill in my closet, in my kitchen, in everything. Not to mention the financial stress constantly weighing down on me, feeling like we were constantly living paycheck to paycheck because we were living above our means, not being able to reach our savings goals, and just living in fear of a very expensive emergency because it would wipe out all of our money. Shopping addiction also cost me the opportunity to have a better relationship. I know in a lot of cases, addiction can actually destroy relationships completely because you completely lose all trust in the other person. An addiction is usually something that you try to hide. So in this case, hiding packages, hiding shopping sprees, not saying like where you're going when you're going out, or doing it during the workday, online. I even started doing the budget every month in order to be helpful, but if I'm being honest, it was so that I could hide more purchases from my husband so that he wouldn't see all of the transactions in the bank account. There's also just the guilt of robbing your spouse or your family in a way, because I'm not just spending my money, I'm also spending the money that my husband worked really hard to earn as well. And along with that, the guilt of having to delay future plans. And sure, we've had things that have happened out of our control that have affected our finances, but knowing I am part of the reason that we don't have as much savings or as much investments as we would like to, part of the reason why we haven't been able to buy a house yet, the guilt has just been immense. And obviously, a healthy relationship is not based on distrust or dishonesty or guilt. So that definitely can be a very heavy cost of shopping addiction. I feel like I could go on and on of everything that shopping addiction has cost me, but the last one I'll mention today is that it cost me my freedom in a way. It may seem freeing to be able to buy whatever you want, whenever you want, but if you are not in control, it will control you. I felt stuck, like I'd never be able to overcome it, that I'd never be able to get out of this whirlpool, this cycle of wanting and buying and wanting and buying. It cost me the freedom to be able to buy anything without guilt, the freedom from being able to enjoy the present because I was trapped mentally, and just the freedom from being able to fully be my individual self, whether that's my creativity or simply just not chasing trends or validation from others. The real cost of shopping addiction is not just the money that's missing from your bank account. It's the sacrifices you are making from your life in order to satisfy or try to satisfy this addiction. I don't know about you, but I am ready to take my life back. In fact, for most of July, I have kind of done an impromptu low buy, really tried to slow down on shopping, really lean on my husband for accountability, and really tried to do a lot of inner work in order to heal. I focused a lot on creating and pursuing my hobbies, and it's just felt so good. It's felt so much more rewarding and peaceful. So if you are also struggling and wanting to overcome shopping addiction, I'd love for you to join me. Feel free to give me a like, subscribe, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.